let's pretend for a minute that I'm recording my portion of Mr. Glaza and I's presentation, analyzing the Privacy Matters campaign from Apple. So here's the slides that we've created, and I'll go ahead and start my portion of the presentation. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mrs. Mason, and I'm here to explain to you today the Apple Privacy Matters campaign. I'll be starting us off kind of talking a little bit about, in general, what the campaign is and why it started, why this campaign kind of came about and why Apple decided to create it. And then at that point, I'll hand it off to my partner, Mr. Glaza, who will go a little bit more in depth on how the campaign is functioning. So let's get started. So first off, you heard me say that this is an ad campaign, and that's partially true. And I'm going to go through and explain how maybe it's a little bit different than a typical ad campaign that a company would make. But as you can see here, it consisted of these different types of ads. So we had kind of YouTube videos, TV commercials is probably the most basic. They had a very select number of billboards, and the billboard that started it all, that launched that campaign, is particularly interesting, and we'll talk about that here in a second. They also had what appears to be, I'm guessing, either internet ads or internet banners, or these could also function as perhaps newspaper ads or magazine print ads as well. So that was what the campaign was made up of. Those are the different elements that we're going to talk about and break down for you in our presentation as we try to understand what is this campaign, what is its purpose, and why did Apple create it. So first off, the initial why that I want to talk about is this is an ad campaign, but it's also a public relations move or a PR move. And it was the company's response to a bug that came out in early 2019 with FaceTime. And this is all information coming from an article by Chaim Gartenberg. He's a news editor and, as his profile suggests, a gadgets expert for an online publication called The Verge. And this article was published, as you can see in the image, on January 28th, 2019. And that article outlines the bug that came up in Facebook, which essentially people suspected that when you received a FaceTime call on an iPhone, even if you denied that call, even if you didn't answer the call, the other person who was trying to contact you could still hear your audio when that call was ringing. And if you go to this article, they actually have a video. This writer, Dieter Bohn, for The Verge, tested this out, and he was actually able to make it work in a video. So if you want to see what that bug was, you can go there to see it. But how it relates here is that Apple, shortly after that happened, so that happened in January, and the Apple privacy campaign debuted at the Consumer Electronics Show in March of that same year. So not 3 months later, Apple puts together and comes out with this campaign almost as a public relations response to the FaceTime bug, which had almost immediately been fixed, but rightfully so. People were worried about their privacy on their iPhones. Now, it was an especially good move to release all this at the Consumer Electronics Show because you had other companies like Google and Amazon with the Amazon Alexa who at that time hadn't been moving on the cell phone market particularly. So they're not necessarily a direct competitor for iPhone, but they are a competitor in general particularly for Siri and the assistant market. So Google and Amazon Alexa are at the Consumer Electronics Show, and they had also had some issues, according to an article also in The Verge from Vlad Savov that was written on January 5th, and he talks about how Alexa had a similar issue where it had been listening to conversations and had distributed the audio recordings of those conversations, mass distributed to them. So Apple's kind of responding not only to the issue that they personally had, but also trying to kind of one up Google and Amazon Alexa, saying that our privacy for our customers, we value that and it's much safer. So this is where the campaign had originally launched. And to give you some context, this is a billboard that is on one of the major hotels where the Consumer Electronics Show was taking place. So below this hotel, and you can't see it, there were different sessions. People were commuting. There's a train that actually runs right in front of this hotel that had a big ad on the side of it that said, "Hey, Google." So this was their response. And looking at the ad in particular, it's very Apple. It has the Apple logo. We can tell that in particular they're focusing on the iPhone because of the iPhone shape that's there. We can also see that the slogan is appropriate. The Consumer Electronics Show was in Las Vegas that year, so the slogan fits the location. So they're thinking about all these elements, placement, location, content, and also what better place to debut this privacy campaign than at one of the largest electronic shows in the country. So I want to take a minute and I'm going to go ahead and show the very first ad that Mr. Glaza and I had looked at when we started analyzing this campaign. And it's probably the simplest. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let him walk you through and rewatch pieces of it as we break down what the ad's communicating and how they put the ad together in order to communicate that message. So let's go ahead and watch through it one time first.
Right now, there is more private information on your phone than in your home. Think about that.